Hello to you. Hope you're doing good. I'm doing good. I always like talking to you guys. Wish I knew more of you. I know some of you, and I'm glad that you can join us each week. Today's episode is entitled Radicals. You know, some people, they just are so purposeful in what they do, and they just are bold, and we've been talking a lot about this, but some people just are real big standouts. And we've been doing this series on Heroes of Faith, and they're all radicals and were before their time in some things and stand out in a lot of ways. The two today are, in some ways kind of extreme, and they just went far above anything you can really imagine. And as I studied about them, I was just inspired in my own walk and what I'm doing. And I think that's the point of learning about some of these people, is that they're inspirational, and you're not trying to emulate them and do exactly what they do and be part of that organization they're part of or whatever they're doing, but it inspires you to find your own thing, your own way of sharing the gospel, your own way of mentoring someone. And I think they just encourage me, and I hope that they do for you too. The past couple of weeks we talked about Corrie ten Boom and her family wanting to save Jews from the Gestapo, and we talked about Elizabeth and Jim Elliot and them wanting to help in Ecuador and knowing it was dangerous, and then Jim dying. And we talked about Billy Graham last week and, his booming voice, and that he talked to like over 200 million people in his lifetime. And he was just on a mission to share the gospel. And he felt a sense of urgency and passion to reach out to others. And this week, we're going to look at two people, try to fit them into one lesson. Amy Carmichael, who some of you may not actually know about, and Hudson Taylor. And Hudson Taylor, interesting, when I was studying for my book, he was the inspiration for all these other people enrolled in the Bible. They had heard of him, they had either gone to see him or read things he'd written, and they were all inspired by him. And I thought, well, we can't do these heroes of faith and not include Hudson Taylor. So, and I'll just keep it really brief because there's so much written about him and so many biographies and different things. I'll just give a real brief overview on him, but it's important to know why all these people looked up to him and how he inspired them. And they both had some similar things. They both came from really devout Christian families who taught Bible in the home. They both ended up dressing to look like the people who they worked with, which is important. They wanted not to come in to change those people, but which the train of missionaries nowadays is really that way, but it wasn't always that way. And there was some negativity involved with some things that happened. And now people do, they want to help encourage whatever little church there is or growing group of believers, but then pass it off for them to train others and in their own language and with their own people. And but it was pretty crazy in Hudson Taylor's time, and they both served God their entire life. No breaks, just served God their entire life. And God gives no retirement age. Hudson, we'll talk about him first. He spent a lot of time in preparation to go to China. He studied the Mandarin language. His family prayed for him to go, and he just kind of grew up knowing that that's what he was going to do. And he learned the language. When he finally felt that he would be able to do that, he took some Bibles with him and some tracts, and he ended up growing his hair out so he could have a long pigtail, look like the Chinese people, and he wore their clothing. He worked for years, and as things grew, he quit the mission agency he had been working for and formed his own mission agency that's still in existence today, China Inland Mission. He knew that he couldn't do all this by himself, and after like 5 years or something, he had some health problems. He went home to England, and he thought, well, we could have 2 missionaries in each province, in each country in China. And so he prayed for 24 missionaries to go and for them to learn the language and dress as the people did. And they went, and he went back to China. And in 1986, he prayed for 100 people to go. And and I think 102 ended up signing up to go. China's not to be won by quiet, ease-loving men and women. The stamp of men and women we need is such as will put Jesus and souls first and foremost in everything and at every time. And even life itself must be secondary. And so, they knew what had to happen. And they also knew that they didn't have like mission agencies sending them money. They earned their keep where they were and worked with the people and earned an income. In 1949, the communist takeover kind of slowed down the work at a bit, and it was interrupted a bit. But China Inland Mission still exists today. It's now has a new name, Overseas Missionary Fellowship. If only I had just a fraction of that boldness that he had. I mean, that he just set out and planned to do this. And he knew that he needed help, and he enlisted people and trained them and helped them to learn and prayed for them. And that's, a few months ago, we did some things on mentoring and discipleship, and that's part of that, train others so that they can train others. And that's all that part of that. And if you've recently led someone to Christ or a new believer that just doesn't know what to do, they don't know what scripture to read, they don't know what, just get together and pray with them, just 5 minutes, and share a verse with them. It doesn't have to be a big, huge thing, but a little thing, and share your heart with them, and take them to lunch sometimes and do some fun things with them, but input into them. They grow. Who knows? They could end up the next Hudson Taylor. You don't know. They could lead 500 people to Christ or whatever. So just, encourage others around you. And I want to read a couple quotes from him. I am so weak that I cannot read my Bible, even pray. I can only lie still in God's arms like a little child in trust. There was parts of his life where he was really ill, and he still prayed for people. I think of my mom, praying for people every day for hours. And, there's so much that we can do even if we don't feel great. Here's another one. Whatever is your best time of day, give that to communion with God. We talked about this before in the morning. Some of you like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and that's your time to spend with God. I do a prayer time in the morning, but it's not my really deep time. That's usually in the afternoon. And, it's whatever works best for you. Just find that time. I have found that there are 3 stages in every great work of God. It is impossible, it is difficult, it is done. So it doesn't really matter how impossible it is. God will help you to get it done. The Great Commission is not an option to be considered. It is a command to be obeyed. This is something that, I kind of harp on every once in a while. And it's frustrating to me that there's believers out there that, have never led someone to Christ, haven't even learned to do that. Don't share with anyone their story, their testimony. And it's hard, I know. It's so hard, and it's easy to be nervous and not know what to do, but just pray for God to give you that peace when you're talking to someone, and pray for God to give you an opportunity to share, because we're all supposed to do that. The Great Commission isn't just for a few people. Here's another one. All God's giants have been weak men who did great things for God because they reckoned on God being with them. So you don't have to be some fancy, mighty, popular person. It's great for those who have a platform. I think of someone like Tim Tebow and all the things that he's done. And you know, you're famous and you have this platform and you are able to reach more people. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, I look at myself and my 3 books and the meager amount that I've sold and the few people that I've had speaking engagements at places, and I mean, it's not a huge ministry. There's just a few of you, but it just takes one person that might do just mighty things for God. And even if just to encourage someone a little bit, that's really important. And so you have to keep working at it. Just keep working at it. And you don't have to be famous. Our joy in him may be a fluctuating thing. His joy in us knows no change. That's true too. Like, we have ups and downs, times where we spend more time with him and don't spend as much time with him, but he remains steadfast. And that's good, because if he didn't, how would we want to believe in him? But, you know, him being sovereign and taking care of things for us and being steadfast and always being there, and we don't have to wait for him when we cry out to him. He's just always there. And these are just important things. And I think they're applicable to today, even though Hudson Taylor lived 200 years ago. And okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about Amy Carmichael. And she also came from a really devout Christian home, and she worked with her family in the community in England for years, and they helped start a church, and they did a lot of different kinds of things. And then she moved to a different area in England, kind of the slum area, and she just felt really burdened for the people. And she ended up going to a series of meetings by Hudson Taylor and heard him speak about China Inland Mission and the work that he was doing there. And she decided she was called. She felt just a really passionate call to go into mission work. And she chose to go to India, and way down in the southern tip of India. And she really felt burdened to work, not just with poor, like slum area, but there's a group of people in India who were children, young women who were slaves to the Hindu temple priests. And so she decided to help them. And she founded the Donover Fellowship in 1901, which would have all these hundreds of people come through and be helped by that. And then later, she stayed there for 55 years. She didn't go home on furlough, no furloughs. She just stayed there and did this work for 55 years. And she wrote some books, and this agency that she started is still in existence today. And after all these years, and it actually includes boys now too. And she just, you never know what you start, what it's going to do. And she wrote several books, and I, read her book If when I was in college, and I looked for it recently. It's just a little booklet with dozens and dozens and dozens of wonderful quotes in it. And I used that like when I was upset about something or whatever, or someone else was, and I used that book so much, and I must have just given it to someone. And I don't know who I gave it to. I hope they've enjoyed it. But anyway, here's a couple quotes from her. But there's so many quotes by her, but let's see, she also wrote books, God's Missionary and Edges of His Ways. Those are a couple more books by her. So here's a couple of quotes by her. If I say, yes, I forgive, but I cannot forget, as though God, who twice a day washes all the sands on all the shores of all the world, could not wash such memories from my mind, then I know nothing of Calvary's love. If I covet any place on earth but the dust at the foot of the cross, then I know nothing of Calvary's love. If I fear to hold another to the highest goal because it is so much easier to avoid doing so, then I know nothing of Calvary's love. How can we follow the Savior far who have no wound or scar? Yeah, that's, There are many rooms in the house of pain. I can't imagine working in such a ministry with people and the pain that they went through. That would be really hard to hear their pain every day. It would be so hard. And then you could just think, oh, I can't take it anymore. I can't listen anymore bad. But then you're not really ministering to them and you're not really sacrificing for them. This episode's called Radicals because Hudson Taylor and Amy Carmichael did things that were so astounding that we can't really imagine. And they were radical before their time to go out and do what they did. You can give without loving, but you cannot love without giving. Wow, doesn't that speak to our society? Think how long ago this is. It's like 100 years ago. Or I don't know when she wrote that, maybe a little less than 100. But yeah, if you're not giving, if you say you love and you don't sacrifice anything or do anything for them or care for them, then, how can that really be love? Unconditional love. We have all eternity to celebrate the victories, but only a few hours before sunset to win them. Oh, yeah. Our life on this earth is so brief and fleeting. Just a little teensy bit of what eternity is. Yet we live it like there is no eternity. I had a friend in college who told me to put this sign up in my house somewhere on the fridge or the mirror somewhere. Does this count for eternity? And that always comes back to my head, How many times each week do we think of heaven? Do we think of eternity? Do we think of loved ones who don't know Christ and what their eternity and eternal torment is like? How often do we think about these things? I would suggest that you pray for that. When I was a baby Christian, and I joined the church I was in, I was a teen when I got saved, and they were studying Ephesians in my Sunday school class. And I can remember, it's broken into 2 parts. I can remember all these things. And one of the things that I had never heard before was that we were sealed with a promise. And I was thinking of that, of that, what that means. And, God chose me, and He's got a place in heaven for me as His child. And what am I doing on earth? And we've talked a lot about how to lead someone to Christ and how to share our testimony in previous episodes. And we talked about putting a little sticky note in your Bible with a list of people that that don't know Christ, that you can pray for every day. And I hope that you did that. I have that in my Bible. I actually took the old one off because some of those people I'm not in contact with anymore, and they'd been there for a lot of years. Not to mean that I wouldn't still pray for them, and some of them I just transferred over onto my new list, but I have new ones to add to my list. And so I hope that you did that. It was like a whole minute-long exercise to take a sticky note and write names on it. And I'm sure off the top of your head, you're thinking of like 5 specific people, but as you write and you think of other relatives and neighbors and such, you end up with columns on your sticky note. And so I would just suggest you to do that and just to pray for them every day as part of your prayer time. And I just think of these 2 amazing people and how they encourage me, and I hope they encourage you too. It was neat to see about who inspired people. I wrote that in our Live Boldly group, who inspires you? And it was neat to see Johnny Erickson Tata. That was someone who inspired me also. Someone put that. Someone put, I can't remember the first one that someone put, but it was someone that had inspired me too. And then someone put John MacArthur, who's a modern day person, but he sticks to truth in the Bible. And he has study things that you can look up and you know that they're true. And so that's kind of great right there. Just even modern day people that might inspire you. You might have a friend who's just really wise, who's just cared for you, but you probably have some of those famous people that are an inspiration to you. And one that I have who you might think they're a hero of faith is Lee Strobel. And I just think about all the work that he's done and how he came to Christ as a journalist trying to prove that the resurrection was false and didn't happen. And in studying it, he realized it really was true. And then he became a Christian. And as a journalist, it's kind of an in-your-face person, which kind of takes you back a little bit. But I tell you, I have him on some form of social media, like maybe, I don't know if it's Twitter or Facebook or something. Every time he's in an airport, he says, I'm at Houston Airport gate, whatever, 5D or whatever. And if you want to talk about Christ, if you have any questions, come talk to me. Have you ever heard anybody else do that? That's pretty amazing. I don't know how many people he gets. He travels a lot, but how many people he's ever gotten that have actually come. And then his movies and his books, they've been really inspiring to me because he's all about not letting any obstacles get in the way. And what is truth? Finding out the truth and sharing that. And I think he does a great job. So he would be a modern day person that is not your typical person that people would say. But anyway, there's probably a lot of people you have like that in your life that inspire you. And we've done five people now from Heroes of Faith. And I think we're going to wrap this segment up. There's more in my book, but we're going to start doing people that are bold in the Bible. And of course, that's an endless thing. But we are just doing this summer thing with these. And so the next month and a half, probably about 6 episodes, maybe more, we will do some heroes from the Bible. And some of them aren't people that you instantly think of. We will do a couple of the ones that you probably do think of, but just, I hope that it inspires you in your walk. And I'll pray for you that you're bold this week, that you share your testimony with someone, that you find someone to mentor, or take a meal to someone, or whatever it is. I'll pray for you, and you pray for me. I'm traveling some this week, and just you pray for me and this ministry, and I would just really appreciate that. And I will see you next time. God bless. Have a great week.